It seems like a lot of people have this scarcity mentality. Today, what we're going to discuss are really 5 indicators that you're actually better off than where you were. To give people confidence and clarity, I was in a wedding of a very, very good friend, and a family member of his was extremely flashy. He talked about, hey, if you ever come up to Boston, we'll go to dinner. Every time we go to dinner, I pay, I cover everything. It was all about this. There was a lot of flash. There was a lot of bling. Fast forward 15 years, and he's having to get loans from his son-in-law.
Wow.
He was completely broke. He was looking for that get-rich kind of scheme. And those people who live below their means or lived below their means, you know, you're going through these high-income earning stage in life, and if you live below your means, odds are that becomes a habit, and you still live below the means.
Absolutely. I read an interesting statistic the other day that basically said only 32% of Americans have actually been able to stay on a budget in their lifetime. So if you think about that, during your working years, based on that statistic, the number of people that are not following a budget, and what we often find is budgets typically allow us to live below our means and keep a wrapper on our spending. The amount of people that aren't doing that are likely overspending in those years are probably doing the same in retirement. So having the discipline in your working years to live below your means, live within a budget, and get used to that muscle memory of that spending habits makes it a lot easier to enjoy your retirement in later years. I think we bump up against a lot of clients with the mentality of they've had that muscle memory, they've done such a great job of living below their means for so many years that they often get into retirement and are afraid to spend because they've lived a certain way their whole life, and it just seems like they're oftentimes a little bit nervous about going on a bigger trip or doing some of these fun things that they have the affordable room to go do, but they're just not ready to open up their purse and do that. So I think the muscle memory is very important in your working years to live below your means. But I also think, like we've said, the whole point of this podcast, understanding where you are and knowing that you are comfortable and you've done the hard work to get to this financial stability phase should also give you the confidence to be able to go do these couple things that you want to do, whether that be travel or whether that be spend on a big event or something else. At times you have to stop and look at where you are and how far you've come so that you can enjoy the money while you have it because you've worked so hard.
Yeah, you know, and going back to that, only, what was it, 32%? 32% of people have lived on a budget. Vanguard had a study that says that the majority of retirees spend 20% more than what they should safely withdraw in retirement. So that's where, especially as you're moving into that distribution phase, having a budget, living within that, and discipline actually provides freedom for you in the future.
Absolutely.
Right? And so, you know, that discipline comes with not having a lot of debt.
Knowing when you get to the stage where your debt is minimal, meaning your big debts are paid off, your credit cards are being paid off every month, your car is paid for, your home is either paid for or on its way towards being paid for. And we'll talk in a second about the home because that's kind of a specialty one there. But student loans, things like that, if you're making major headway on those or you've paid them off completely, you're in a good place at that stage.
Yeah, you know, being debt-free is a good thing. As a financial advisor, we have our hat on, but there are acceptable debts.
Smart debts, as we call them.
Smart debts. And I think a home mortgage does potentially could be, as long as it's a very small amount of your income. Think about it. If 25 years ago you did a 30-year mortgage, your payment on that mortgage is probably not very much. Insurance and taxes in Texas, or at least in Houston, will be more than probably what that is. So making sure that debt load for that acceptable type of debt is vitally important. Right? And so as you
I think people often too, when people are so concerned about being completely debt-free moving into retirement, I think they're usually focused on the cash flow perspective, which is a good way to think of it. If your monthly bring home income is, say, $8,000 and your mortgage is $4,000 of that, especially if you have a high interest rate, you're just giving up a lot of flexibility to yourself. So once you get that paid down and paid off, I would say, just gives you more room in the budget to be able to have freedom to go do the things you want to.
That's right. And from a behavioral finance standpoint, there's this psychological comfort, right? And that psychological comfort comes from having that paid off and knowing that asset is there. And it does free up cash flow. Now, it doesn't mean if you pay the house off that it's not going to cost you anything. You still have maintenance, taxes, and insurance that are inside there. But the real point about managing the debt, I think, is about credit card debt.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, we've seen clients that we work with that it seems like once every 18 months or so, we got to step up and pay this off because these credit card bills and that's okay if you have sufficient assets. But in this scenario, if you're living within your means, and your debts are low enough, then that's the key. If you have low debts, then you're in good shape.
So another way of knowing that you're making good progress and you're on track or doing better than you may even think is all about your cash reserves. If you have saved away your 3 to 6 months of cash flow, and I would take that even a step further, if you have your cash set aside for the next 1 to 2 years of living expenses, especially if you're a retiree, then you're probably in a better stage than you may realize. Well,
that kind of feeds into, and we've got white papers about this, and we call it the dynamic age approach, right? We go through and we plan for those first 5 years worth of income need.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't put you on a budget. That allows flexibility and freedom, but you have the peace of mind so you're not making short-term decisions. But the key, which is what you're saying, is ensuring that you have additional funds for that emergency, right? The air conditioning goes out. You need new tires, whatever, right? I was going to make a joke and say you have to bail someone out of jail, something like that. That liquidity inside there gives you that peace of mind of knowing that's in place. Now, one thing that I've noticed, and this has happened quite often here in the last 6 months where I've had conversations with clients, their comfort level for the amount of cash is an enormous number.
Well, don't you think, too, I feel like for clients that have gone through some emotionally painful experiences, the tech bubble, 08, 09, even COVID, seeing big drops in the market makes people scared and makes them want to hold on to their cash for more than what we would say they actually need to for a financial standpoint. They tend to just want to, for lack of a better word, hoard the cash for comfort.
Right. And I get that and I understand that. But the beauty of having that is it takes away, I would call it the obligation to make decisions that have lasting effects.
Absolutely.
Market's down. I can't take this anymore. I need to sell out of everything and put everything into cash. I'm going to be in CDs. That may not work because if the fundamental reason why you made those investments is still intact, it probably is going to make sense in the long term. And so getting that kind of peace of mind and knowing in there and what allows for that emergency fund to be a little bit lower will be having a significant amount or having your hands around what your guaranteed income is in retirement. This is vitally important. Social Security, and I realize with the big, beautiful bill, there's been a few adjustments and changes, and we're talking with clients about that now. All for the good for current retirees. Future retirees may have to wait a little bit longer to get their full benefit. But knowing, as an example, if you take Social Security early at age 62, you're going to get a discount on how much you are able to receive, how much you receive, and that discount lasts for the rest of your life while you're collecting. Yep. If you do it at full retirement age, you're going to get that full amount. And that amount's going to grow with cost of living adjustments, just like if you take it early, it'll grow with cost of living adjustments. But really what you have to do is you have to do the analysis. If delaying it to age 70, what happens is you have a guaranteed increase of about 8% per year. Well, if you tell me that I've got cash flow and I can increase that by 8% per year as long as I have longevity in my family and everything, I'm going to take that guaranteed 8%. And a lot of times people talk about Social Security as, I'll just forget about it.
Yeah.
It is meaningful for a married couple age 65 properly managing their Social Security payments, meaning that deciding the proper time to take it, can be several $100,000. The total cash value of that can be well in excess of $1 million.
Absolutely.
People don't view it that way.
No, and I think a common myth that I hear from clients I've talked to, people often think you get to 67, you need to hurry up and turn on your Social Security so that you're not touching your assets. There is a lot to be said about leaving your assets alone and taking your Social Security. But in situations, especially with a married couple and where there's longevity on at least one side, if not both of the family, accessing your assets for income and allowing your Social Security to delay and earn that guaranteed 8% all the way up to 70 often makes a lot of sense. To your point, upwards of $1 million of benefit, that is massive to a married household.
Yeah, and the thing about not taking that payment may also give you other options. Mm-hmm. Look, here's the deal. As you're moving from that accumulation phase to the distribution phase, the one thing that people get scared about is not receiving that paycheck every 2 weeks, worried about healthcare, worried about these different things that are inside there. But what the thing that I would say is that what you want is flexibility. What you want is freedom, right? And by delaying that Social Security, collecting Social Security, that may open up freedom, as an example, to do Roth conversions where they make sense, because your income level is at a level that it really makes a lot of sense, which may give you tax-free income in the future, as well as a lot of other potential benefits inside there. And so the higher the amount of guaranteed income, the happier, the studies show us, the happier you are in retirement. You're not as worried about the day-to-day movement. And that goes to feed to the behavioral finance of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm going to add one small point that we didn't talk about in pensions. I know that they're not often seen anymore, but there are still company and state pensions out there that provide guaranteed income to clients too. That combined with Social Security can really cover a significant portion of cost of living in retirement.
That is a fantastic point. And we deal with a lot of people who have a choice to take a lump sum payment or receive those annuity payments. And the thing that what's always kind of funny to me is that the vast majority of people come and says, "Oh no, I've already made my mind up. I'm taking that lump sum." Mm-hmm. Well, the reality is that you need to evaluate all the choices and the options.
Yep.
Right? Now, we do see majority of cases where that does make the most sense for the family. But we've also bumped into a lot of cases where you're making a mistake if you take this lump sum. You're better off taking these guaranteed payments for your family at the end, right?
Absolutely.
And to help you avoid making mistakes, right? That potentially could end up having effect. But the reality is that as we go and kind of wrap this all up, a lot of people have this scarcity mentality. We're not advocating people go and start spending money like drunken sailors. It's really about understanding your money, right? And so understanding as you go into retirement what your cost of living is and maintaining and living on that budget.
I would say it all comes to having a plan. We talk about this on so many episodes, but everything starts with having a plan. That way you know where you currently are and what situation you're in. And like we're about to walk back through these 5 really good topics of things to know where you are today that show that you're probably in a really good situation, recognizing from your plan where you currently are. And in fact, if you're in this surplus area where you're doing really well, enjoying life today. Like you always say to our clients and to all of us here at Concenture, life is for living.
And so with that, if you have any questions or anything like that, make sure you check out our website, concenturewealth.com, where we have a whole bunch of white papers as well as guides on how to go through to be thinking about it as you move into retirement. And with that, thank you for joining us this week.
See you next time.